afternoon and happy Sabbath, Covenant Advent Church. And good afternoon and happy Sabbath to those of you who've joined us online. Welcome back for our afternoon study. Thank you for joining, and I pray you'll be richly blessed as we worship together through the remaining Sabbath hours. Please take your hymnals in hand and turn to number 439. Hymn number 439. Hymn 439. How far from home, I asked as on I bent my steps, the watchman spake, the long dark night is almost gone, the morning soon will break. Then weep no more, but speed thy flight with hope's bright star, thy guiding ray, till thou shalt reach the realms of light in everlasting day. I ask the warrior on the field, this was his soul-inspiring song. With courage bold the sword I'll wield, the battle is not long. Then weep no more, but well endure the conflict till thy work is done. For this we know the prize is sure, when victory is won. I asked again that sea and sun seemed with one voice to make reply. Time's wasting sands are nearly run, eternity is nigh. Then weep no more, with warning tones, portentous signs are thickening round, the whole creation waiting groans to hear the trumpet sound. Not far from home, oh blessed thought, the traveler's lonely heart to cheer, which oft a healing balm has brought, and dry the mourner's tear. Then weep no more, since we shall meet where weary footsteps never roam. Our trials past, our joys complete, safe in our Father's home. Amen. I'll now turn the Bible study hour over to our pastor, Pastor Lloyd Grubb, who will continue with part 2 of In the House of Mourning.
All right, good afternoon again, everyone, as we look at a secondary thought, as we continue the thought about in the house of mourning. We'll just kneel to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you again for the blessings of your word in this day. Thank you, dear Father, for the blessings of this week and for the struggles that we went through and for the victories gained and for the lessons learned. I pray, the Lord, you may bless us, dear Father, as we move on into close to the close of the Sabbath and into a new untread week. May your grace go with us as we study together for Christ's sake. Amen. So, in the house of mourning is what we're looking at here. And we start by again with our main text where we find that statement, Ecclesiastes 7 verse 1 through, I think, 6. And notice it says here, a good name is better than precious ointment, the day of death than in the day of one's birth. It is better to go into the house of mourning than to go into the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. So again, that's the end of all men, where you go into the house of feasting. So again, we believe that when you sober and when you're focused on what life is really about, you can make better decisions. When you're giddy and feasting and all that, you get you lose track of that. We walk in the valley of the shadow of death, and that we live in a world where evil lurking nigh always. Notice here, sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools in the house of mirth. And this has always been the case, and this is where you see people go severely wrong. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than a man to hear the song of fools. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 3 and 4, it reads, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So again, mourning is a good thing to go through, and we'll deal especially with verse 4 in this talk in the evening here. Notice again, but woe unto you that are rich, for you have received your compensation, your consolation. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. And so life switches up greatly. It's fascinating when you live a little life and you notice that, say, how one moment one person is up and the next moment that person goes down. And so life switch. The first shall be last and the last shall be first, I think, are a similar situation. So sometimes one have to learn to take L's in this life, because what happened, you learn from those experiences. But when people try to avoid it, they go bad. How many people, they just want to live a certain life where it's all ease, fun and games, ice cream, and all that, and it end up bad for them because they never get used to like things like bitter, things like negative and so forth. So I remember years ago I learned that the American society is not familiar with the word purge, and so they don't purge. So it's a lot of vanilla ice cream, it's a lot of burgers, a lot of everything that is sweet or rich and fat, but they're not familiar that it's just like a car that has to change the engine oil, you have to change the filters, you have to purge out things, clean things out, put back mineral oil, put back oil in it, change things out, that you do that to your body. And so your body need purging. And so sometimes you get a serious purging. By accident this week, I tell you that I purged myself, but it was by accident. And it was a brutal experience. All right, very brutal experience. I could tell you in detail what brutal experience it was. But what it is that having some stomach problems, I decided to drink copious amount of honey, and it was raw honey, and it was not pleasant. The experience was cathartic, and it was rough, but it was a lot of honey. And it flushed me up by accident. So it was an accident. It wasn't my intention. I was drinking it for other experiences, but it gave me a different experience than what it is. And so I guess, I always hear people talk about eating out of pepper. I know how things come out bad, but it was along those lines. So that I said I won't do that again. I learned the hard way. So probably work for you, but it doesn't work for me. Copious amount of honey. So honey is good, but you can't drink too much honey. That's what the Bible said? Right, so I learned that that's what the Bible said, don't drink too much honey. All right, so notice here in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. So an environment where mourning is not a thing. So what I want to look at is this idea here that we have gone from an environment where people celebrate in funerals to an environment where mourning is not a thing. People don't want to even mourn. And I understand why you do not want to sweat. But I've come to see that sweating is a good thing. Today in our modern world, you go to a spa as something cute for the most part. But I've noticed, like, say, if I go to Y, some people they seem to go to Y just to go to there's a room that is just hot. And is a sauna, is that's what it is? And I think I've been there twice, once, and I was like, why does anybody sit in something so hot? Right? Now you sweat, but for me, I feel like they should put a tube where you put it in your mouth, sanitize it, put it in your mouth so you can breathe cooler air. Because the air in it is so hot that's why I can't stay in it. And I try a second, I'm like, this is too hot. So I realized why they build like the infrared sauna. So I said, I'll just use it at home because the one where I have my head out, so my body's hot, my head skin sweat, and I can just purge, sweat out some stuff, but I can breathe at the same time. Because that one I can't breathe. And I can see why they close those things under COVID, because if you go in there and somebody have COVID, you catch it. So, but the thing is that you learn that is sometimes if something happened, you should cry. Something happened that would demand for you to cry, not just something good, because obviously I want things to happen to me good that it just overwhelms me with emotions that I cry. But bad things happen, that is not a bad thing to cry, because losses are suffered and you can't just take a hit and just suck it up and keep going. You have to say, that was bad. And I think because fragility in our society, somehow a psychological twist that the society doesn't want to deal with mourning and deal with things that are bad. Like tragedy happened, we just move on, they say, from one tragedy to another, and we never really do introspection and retrospection, I don't know if that's a word, and review what just happened. We move on from one tragedy to the other. We do it nationally and we do it locally. So what I mean by that is, what was the autopsy of what happened in Vietnam? You remember that? How did the society deal with that? What happened in the autopsy that happened in Afghanistan? We just pull out and we just move out. But what happened? What happened with Iraq? Are we out of Iraq or in Iraq? We're out of Syria, in Syria. What happened in Libya, Lebanon? What happened when there's a tornado? Some hurricane hit the Appalachia 2 years ago. What happened? We just move on from one tragedy to the other. But I realize it's not the media is doing it, it's the society, because that's the culture. The culture doesn't suffer and mourn and suffer losses. We just move on from one tragedy to the next, and then we just go and create another tragedy. So I realize the society, we live in an environment where mourning, weeping, crying, purging is not a thing. And it's not in the vocabulary. So if you say purge, and to this week, ask people you know, when was the last time they purge? When's the last time they get a flush out, a clean out? Because you know you have to purge out stuff, right? And ask them, when was the last time? Are you familiar with this concept? Because everybody needs spiritual and physical purge. Everybody needs to fess up, to confess, to repent, to clean stuff out. You do whatever. Notice we in a society that people are hoarders. Right? They just keep hoarding stuff, and how many years later they can't even walk because there's no place. All right? And I believe they can't what? You can't drive in the car because the car is just filled with stuff. So an environment where mourning is not a thing will produce what? Mourning. And will lead to what I believe is what the main driver of PTSD. Because PTSD is you're mourning way after the fact when you realize you should have mourned. And if you don't mourn and get it, like, let it out. You ever hear somebody say, you need to let it out? Like, for me, when I'm in pain, tomorrow knows, right? Because you're going to hear the grunting and the who in a hand. Don't keep it in. And then I'll tell tomorrow that say, listen, I'm going through this experience. Now somebody say, why you tell? Because just in case something bad happened to me, she have a track record of what's happening, so she can say, oh yeah, he was telling me this was going on. I need somebody to know what the suffering is, just in case there's an emergency and I didn't die but I live, and at least the doctors or somebody need to say, oh no, your wife says this is what's going on, and they can investigate. That makes sense? But, eh? I shouldn't suffer alone. Come on, no, you shouldn't suffer alone. But the people who are suffering and they don't understand it, it's part of the experience of life. You know, it's we live in the valley of the shadow of death. You're gonna suffer. And a lot of people, they're doing all kind of stuff they don't want to come and just talk to somebody and pray to God and talk to somebody, get some counseling, get some advice. You know, let it out. And they keep it in, and if you keep it in, after a while, it's going to make you sick, mentally or physically. So as I said, this week I purged, but it was by accident, right? I was just, as I say, I did something, but what happened, when it finished, I felt better. You know why I felt better? I felt better because the pain was over. Not the pain of why I purged, but the pain of the purging stopped. Because the purge can be a very cathartic, very painful situation. So Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1 now. Notice it says here, to everything there is a season, a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to what? Die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which was planted. A time to kill, and a time to what? Heal. So the question is, if you can do the killing, because our last 30 years, and I would say, yeah, probably more or less 30 years, more than 30 years, because I'm counting Desert Storm. And I really fully shouldn't count Desert Storm, but I worked with a few people who actually fought in Desert Storm. This was Iraq 1.0, right? Because Iraq 2.0 was shock and awe, right? So I worked with a few people, you know, Bush Jr. and Bush Senior. So Senior was one, and then Junior was two. Father and the son did all the killing over there in Iraq. But what it is that they did the time of killing, but they did the time of healing. Was there a time of healing for the troops? Did they really assess why did we go to Iraq and why did we cause on ourselves so much roadside bombs? Because they say it was the Iranian under Soleimani that did the roadside bombs. But why were you there? Were you there on the true pretense or false? You see, none of this was really assessed. So that you don't know why you're there. You just know basically what they tell the average American. Oh, we against Muslims. Right, but you're over here and they're over there. Why are you over there? Like, okay, who's the enemy? If they're bad and you're over there, who's the bad guy? Think about it. I'm against somebody, but I broke into their house. And they fight against me, but I hate them because they fight against me. But I broke into their house. Why are you over there? Why the number one people that you support are abusing Palestinians? And what was the reason why Bin Laden said what he said and why he did what he did? He said he did what he did, whether he accept or whether he was talking the truth or not. Whether he accept is true or not, he said because of what you guys doing to Palestinians via the Israeli. If you join the American military, are you fighting for America, you're fighting for Israel. You see, so when you look at this, you understand there's a time to kill, so I get that, but there's a time for what? For healing. But if you only do time for kill, are you creating an environment that mourning is not a thing, that you never really sit down and assess and say, what just happened? Notice here, a time to break down and a time to build up. Does that make sense? A time to weep and a time to what? To laugh. A time to mourn and a time to what? To dance. Because you gotta like, right? That's my best rendition of a dance. Right? A time to dance. Right? So there's a time for that. But can you build a church where there's only time for what? You could do it, right? But Are you going to have a time for mourning? Are you going to be able to handle the time of mourning? Because you only build to prosper. Your best days are ahead of you. Life is just going to be good. It's going to be time to laugh. It's going to be time to heal. It's going to be time to build. It's going to be time to plant. It's going to be time to born. But there's never no what? Never no, oh, thanks. There's never thanks. There's never no downtime. Does that make sense? So you could create an environment, right? You could create an environment where it's never a time to celebrate, it's never a time to whatever, and you could create an environment, it's never a time to mourn. And I'm going to tell you, I'm more worried about where the environment, because I'm living it, I believe. We're in a society that doesn't take stock of mourning, of assessing, and it makes bad the society, hurts the society. Psalm chapter 30, verse 1 onward. Psalm chapter 30, verse 1 through 5. Notice here, I will extol thee, O Lord, for thou hast lifted me up and has not made my foes to rejoice over me. O Lord my God, I cried unto thee, and thou hast healed me. O Lord, thou hast brought up my soul from the grave. Thou hast kept me alive, that I should not go down to the pit. Sing unto the Lord, O ye saints of his. Give thanks at the remembrance of his holiness. For his anger endureth but a moment. In his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. So all I understand is that says, it's one of the things why it's good to mourn is that mourning only goes on for a while, for a little bit. And as you say, it may endure for a night. But you have to weep, because in order, if you suffer loss, you have to weep. You have to acknowledge the fact that you suffer loss. And for me, why this is a very crucial part, because in this life, you will suffer losses. You're not going to go through life and not suffer loss. As we learn about the number one leader in the country, that he was trained never to accept or admit a defeat or admit a loss. But I was trained by understanding the Bible that you must accept the fact when you're in a bad situation and when you've suffered loss, because if you don't, you'll suffer worse loss. You should not be in the situation where you're down $10,000 and you put your house up on the die and you roll the dice. Because that means you're down and you decide, I say, listen, I'm going to go one more shot. This is how somebody end up in 5 bankruptcies and could bankrupt the nation. Because you cannot admit the fact that you're down on your luck, so to speak, and you shouldn't double down. You don't double down on craziness. Does that make sense? But that's how I learned. Weeping might endure for a night, and it's good, may endure for a night, but joy come in the morning. You must weep. Don't be as fools that don't understand that you do suffer losses in this life. You will fail. You will go through bad time. We're never going to be immune from any of the deeds of life. Because what happened, and that would take me to the next, I think the next text. I'm preempting my text with my thought. So from celebrating death to no funeral, and then people act like they're plants. We notice in Job chapter 1, verse 18 through 21, that Job, righteous man, suffered loss beyond what he could control. This was a bigger story going on. And what I realized is that there's my personal life, there's my family, and then extended family. And then there also what's going on in society that is I have no control over. In other words, I might be very frugal, I might balance my budget, I might take care of my health, but it doesn't mean that in the society I'm living in, I can ignore what's going on because there's a bigger thing. What we learned from Job's story is that there could be a bigger story or narrative that's affecting your life that is out of your control. Your personal choice in life does not affect the bigger narrative. That's the story of Job. That's the story of Daniel. Daniel was taken captive, but was Daniel a righteous person? Yes, but did he suffer because of those around him? So you could be affected, and you're doing the right thing, you dotting your I's, you're crossing your T's, and you're affected because there's a bigger narrative. And that's one of the things we learn about the Bible. I have choices to make, and I have to look out for my best interests and those around me. But there's things happening that are out of my control. In other words, the average American is $270-something thousand worth of debt. Did they choose the warmongering stance for the last 30 years, 40 years? Did they choose the project for the new American century, make America great again, fight war, left, right, all over the world? Did they choose it? Right? Did you choose it? But are you on the hook for all that warmongering? Yes, you're on the hook. So there's things happening in your life that you must take account of. Because what it is that you can't be like the general public, because you're supposed to actually have some Bible in your life and God in your life and do better. So notice in Job chapter 1 verse 18 it says, while he was yet speaking, that somebody came to bring bad news to Job, there came also another and said, thy son and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the four corners of the house. And it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head, and fell down upon the ground, and he worshipped, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Job lost everything. And you know the story, he even lost his health. This was a bigger narrative than what Job was dealing with. It was not Job's righteousness or unrighteousness that was affecting. There was a bigger narrative. And Job lost everything. So you could have dot your I's, cross your T's, do all the things, work hard, build up a big nest egg, because Job was a wealthy man. But Job lost everything. Wealth can take wings and fly away. Your health can take wings and fly away. And yet God preserved his mind. Body got touched. And yet he maintained his integrity. And he worshiped God. But he rent his mantle because he had just suffered a massive loss. Such a massive loss that it was a loss of this, including the other things when it comes on to crops and value, that he says basically he's naked. And there was more suffering to come. So we have to be ones that acknowledge that, said, this is a tragedy. This is something bad. Because if you don't acknowledge tragedy, when tragedy comes your way, you're not going to know how to deal with it. If you don't acknowledge people that have lost, when you lose, you're not going to be able to deal with it. And as I say, we live in a society that is just, they go to funerals and they celebrate in funerals. I'm not going to say that you should not celebrate the funeral, legacy of a funeral. But I've been to funerals that it was nothing to celebrate. It was a tragedy. Right? You cannot be in a society where they're burying so much young people. And you don't tell me it's a tragedy. Those young men that were selling coke over there in Pennsylvania, that's a tragedy. Because if it goes the way the case is laid out, they're going to prison. Their father is going to prison. Right? That's a tragedy, because what happened? They're going to have a felony record on their hand. And how many families have that? You cannot go through things like that and not understand. You just suffered a big loss. Right? You cannot have it where all these people, all these things going on, and you're suffering all of that, and you're telling me that's not tragedy. So Job recognized a tragedy, and you have to recognize that there could be tragedy. Tragedy, there's people who suffer some tragedy over there in what the place called? Venezuela. There's people who suffer some tragedy over there in Colombia, in Peru, in various different places, all these earthquakes and hurricanes, tornadoes, all these things happening. I saw what was going on in Hawaii. And, some of the people, they suffered some serious losses. Tornadoes and stuff like that. So we have to be able to acknowledge that. And I think that's a good for the soul. Because somebody will say, we just should celebrate. No. We can't be like the Bible Belt people who are killing people all day long, and they just, all they want to do is celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. We have to understand that, no, it's not work like that. You can't be killing people and don't think that's a killing going to come back your way. So the environment that we live in, we have to acknowledge, and this is me trying to work through this thing, acknowledge that says, you know, you cannot be in this giddy mode, especially in these last days, and not realizing that say bad things are happening. And that mourning is happening, and that you have to prep up your mind for that type of stuff. Hosea chapter 4, verse 1 onward says, or before I read it, I say, an environment which creates plenty of mourning. So what I've realized is that the environment, the more the environment don't want to deal with mourning, is the more they'll mourn. You get that? The more people, notice now, as I was saying to somebody that, you know, because I was talking to this young man and he was saying to me, because I guess he didn't like what I was saying to him, because I think he was harassing me, trying to sell me something. And I was saying to him that, trying to explain something to him. And, you know, I somehow, in the conversation, I made it be known that I didn't grow up in America, I grew up outside of America as a young man. And, you know, he had said to me, say, I had a third world mindset, right? So I said to him, I'm going to explain to you what a third world mindset is. I say, when I left the country at 18, left Jamaica at 18, I never went to a funeral of a person below 18. Not a pair. I never remember somebody in the high schools that near where I went to high school, my high school or any high school, that went missing. And so forth. I just gave him a litany of stuff that I did not experience. I never experienced somebody below 18 or above 18 dying of drug overdose. But I remember reading an article of a family in Ohio who within 14 months they buried 12 people below 18. Within 12 months, 14 people below 18. They went to funerals. So you can create an environment that mourning is constant, but yet you would say, which is the happier environment? You're in the superpower. Are we in the superpower? The most powerful nation on earth, the richest nation on earth, the most powerful military on earth, the most money spent for health care, the most money spent for sick care, the most money spent for retirement, the the best people, the brightest people, the superior people. Do we live amongst them? The best people on the planet. But yet you're going to 14 funerals in 12 months. So you can create an environment where you're constantly mourning or in need of mourning. Just think about the last 30 years. How many young men came back in body bags because they were sent off to war? How many young men came back with their face blown off, hand blown off, foot blown off, body mangled up, PTSD? But we live in the most powerful, the best nation ever. So one have to ask yourself a question. Does the Bible teach that the first shall be last and last shall be first? So one have to be careful about all this boasting about the first is the first that, because there's a lot of mourning. So you can create an environment. You're all over the world fighting fires and killing people and starving people and embargoing people, sanctioning people, telling people you can't buy or sell, can't buy or sell. Just think about it. What nation fit Revelation 12:13, verse 11? That you can't buy or sell, can't buy or sell, can't buy or sell. Every day you hear, we're going to put the most powerful tariff on Iran, that they won't be able to buy or sell. Who does that? Isn't it the beast of Revelation 13? Hosea chapter 4, verse 1. Hear the word of the Lord, ye children of Israel, for the Lord hath a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor mercy, nor knowledge of God in the land. So this we can apply to the Revelation 13 beast, which is Western Europe and America. Notice here, there is no truth. On Fox News, on CNN, you see, there is no mercy, because every day the countries seem to revel in starving other people and from other countries. There is no knowledge of God in the land, but yet they say they have so much televangelists talking about your best days ahead of you. By swearing and lying and killing and stealing and committing adultery, and they break out and blood toucheth blood. So you do to others as you like them to do to you. We can create an environment where mourning does not stop. Like what we learned. We learned that for every one person that died in Afghanistan, every American troop that died in Afghanistan, a private contractor died. Or more. So somebody was burying their loved ones. See, mourning can be something that you've created an environment where mourning is constantly, because there's curses running in the land. So you see other people mourning and you ignore their mourning, you mock them more. This week they were mocking the Asians because they've been sent to Port-au-Prince. They celebrated that. But which country has destabilized Port-au-Prince and Haiti? Which is a country? But yet they mock the people that they've been abused and enslaved. So we see this, that you could create an environment that you're mocking other people mourning, but you will mourn too. But people don't see that. That says no. The environment is creating mourning because, again, as you cause pain on others, the pain will come back on you. And you have to address yourself and say, wait a minute, what I want for myself, I should want it for others. So notice here, by swearing, lying, killing, stealing, committing adultery, they break out and blood touch blood. How many mass shootings happen because people have infidelity issues? Therefore shall the land mourn, and everyone that dwelleth therein shall languish. With the beasts of the field, with the fowls of the heaven, yea, the fishes of the sea also shall be taken away. So even the nature is being affected. So notice what's been going on in Israel. So as Israel kill and cause mourning, do they have to be fleeing all over the world? Yeah. I see, that's how I look at it. I look at it that says, I believe that there's God, and God is a great balancer of things. He's a just God. And so I look and say, okay, if this happening, this is going to happen. This happened, that's going to happen. And that's what forms a lot of my statements. Because I don't believe that you just do wickedly and you just go on willy-nilly and nothing happen. So an environment that creates plenty of mourning. Notice here, yet let no man strive nor reprove another. For thy people are they that strive with the priests. So sometimes I talk here, but sometimes I'm talking to somebody. Like, say, for instance, as I say, I was engaging that young man. I didn't want to say anything to him because I was trying to avoid saying anything to him. It's just that he triggered me when he talked about third world mindset. And I had to explain to him what it's like born on the other side of the track. Does that make sense? I wasn't born on this side of the track. So I don't know what it's like to take opiates as candy. But I don't have the experience of taking opiate as candy. I don't know what it's like to be the head of a superpower. But I know what it's like to live a peaceful life. Like I was saying to Brother Green this week, there were times when I went to go pick some mangoes or get some mangoes, and I didn't have anything to pick the mangoes, so I'll take probably a stone or a mango to try to get a ripe mango off the tree. And that was the limit of my frustration. I don't think you need to see therapy for that. That was probably a frustrating day. What do you think? I could deal with a frustrating day like that. But not when you're in a superpower. Therefore shall thou fall in the day, and the prophets also shall fall with thee in the night. And I will destroy thy mother. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, because they have rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shall be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy God, I will also forget thy what? 4,000 plus priests Catholic priests been imported into America. 3,800 Catholic nuns. How many Adventist pastors have been imported into America? From Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, where they used to export, what they said they used to export missionaries to go abroad. Now they import missionaries. Have something changed? I think they need to import some missionaries to go to preach to the Jews. They seem to be some of the biggest warmongers the world has ever seen. Imagine a Jewish nation want to fight a war with Iran, Turkey, every nation on the planet. 7-point-something million people want to fight the world. Ain't that fascinating? They need some preachers to go and tell them about blessed are the peacemaker. Oh, somebody came before called Jesus, and preach to them about blessed the peacemaker, and they kill him. They hate anything to do with peacemaking. As they were increased, so they sinned against me. Therefore, I will change their glory into a shame. So we can have an environment that creates plenty of mourning because the environment is about nothing to do with mourning. They don't acknowledge failures. But as I say, on a personal basis, I want to encourage you, do not be one of those people that never can acknowledge that you took a loss. You suffer a loss, that you're in pain, that you just suffer financial loss, social loss. It's okay to cry. Don't be like a fool believing that says it's going to be, this life is going to be just your best days ahead of you. The only way you should believe that if you're down there in Texas, whatever, Houston, wherever that preacher that smiles all the time and talk about this, that he's super, what they call it, presiding over tragedy while talking about best days every day. What a clown show. Notice in Revelation chapter 3, verse 14. Revelation 3, verse 14. And unto the church of the Laodiceans write, these things says the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would that thou were cold or hot. So after the Philadelphia church, which is a church that freed the slaves in the Western world, let's call it like that, came the Laodicean church. And we've been in the Laodicean period. This is the period that we close out. This is the period that I refer to as hypocrites and fake. All right? The church is not what it is. You know the church is fake. How many of our church leaders voted for the current leader to save Western European and white people? How stupid it is. You think that person, serial bankrupter, serial this, serial that, is going to save Western European white people? What a dumb decision. But yet, they're fake as ever because they was, oh no, we're not racist. That is a stupid and dumb decision. Notice again. You can be in a feasting, partying mode and no mourning, and all of it is an act. You're just acting. You're acting as if you're not depressed. You're acting. To me, what it is these people are actors. They're hypocrites. They're acting as if they're not depressed. How much of them, the biggest party and the biggest feast and then they shoot themselves in the head? We live in a society that breaks the mold when they come on to suicide. Because they're fake as ever. Fake would be how I describe the society. They're faking it. Because they say fake it until you make it. What you need to do is make it. But here somebody said, Lord, you're talking about what? No, I'm talking about the Christian era we live in. The Christian era we live in is put forward by fake. Just fake. They're just fake. So here goes the Bible continue to describe fake. I know thy works that neither hot or cold. But do they seem like they're hot? They're hot? They seem hot. Hottest country economically, hottest country this, hottest country. Stop it. It's not. I could be the richest person if I'm a thief. Going to Venezuela, going here, stealing this, stealing that, doing slavery, doing this, robbing people, stealing people. Look, you ever meet a Nigerian that is not a prince? Or a princess? I've met some that are not prince and princess. But a lot of them claim they're prince and princess. I'm like, wait a minute, so everybody from the royal family, I think it's 200 million people. 200 million people can't be all princes and princesses. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, is that so? I will spew it out of my mouth. Piak. Now, do they spew themselves out of their mouth? Why so many people in the society is so lonely? Can't have friends. Piak. Because you know why? Fake as ever. Ever deal with somebody that's fake as ever? It's not just their eyelash and their ear is fake, but their behavior is fake as ever. And you just spew them out of your mouth. Because thou says, I am what? Notice they're saying that they're rich and increase with goods. Come on now. They sound like this week on the media. And have need of nothing. Read it again. If this doesn't describe our current situation that we're living in, I don't know what describes it. I'm rich, increased with goods, Walmart, Amazon, and whatever, and have need of what? Nothing. And knowest that thou art what? Wretched, miserable, poor, blind, naked. What a lala. What a whipping. And this is what we live in. Again, if somebody going to say, Lord, but we the superpower, and I say, yeah, but you're burying your kids like crazy. This week in the news, kids getting arrested for drugs, kids, okay, why does it happen that the innocent, the innocent country, the most innocent country in the world that everybody trying to sell drugs to? Oh, they have to spend billions of dollars to attack drug cartels because they keep selling us drugs because we're so innocent. We're innocent. You're fake. Rubio just gave $1 billion to Colombia to fight drugs. Because we just need to stop it because the Colombians just keep selling us this white powder. Oh man, I keep taking this thing. Right? Like, who are you kidding me? And people fall for this foolishness? The Bible is powerful. We're living in the church era of these people are piak. Spit them out of your mouth. Because they say that I'm rich, I'm the best. Okay, you're the best economy or whatever. You're in debt. And I'm going to tell you something. No, I would say to Brother Green this week, no economists I've heard talk about, economists are talking about this. The number 1, 2, 3, 4 spending that's racking up the debt is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and war. Medicare, Medicaid is the issue. Social Security, thirdly. War, fourth. Everybody's talking about the war spending. What they're not talking about is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. And those just get put on steroids. They just got put fire on them because what happened? We're now in, since the end of last year, last quarter 2026 onward, we're in the silver tsunami. Healthcare costs is going to balloon. And the people who are voting for all this madness are people who they're sick, their diet is terrible, their health is terrible, and their age is just took off. 65 and older baby, we're gonna see signs of wonder when it comes on to healthcare costs. This is a never-ending rocket ship that's rocking all the way to your nursing home and hospitals. It's gonna be massive. And yet, God, we're talking about this war because war is a distraction from the real cause. And there's always COLA increase for Social Security. We ain't seen nothing yet. What's the average cost for a nursing home in America? $5,000 a month? $4,000? What is it? Somebody tell me, because I didn't pull that up. So notice here, because thou says, I am what? I am rich, and increased with goods. I have need of what? Nothing. Listen, that plane that landed in Port-au-Prince, they should reverse that plane and put more people from Haiti and come back here because guess what happened? The average? 9,000. That has to be wrong. 9,000 a month? 9,000. We ain't seen nothing yet. Put double that in a few years. That is crazy, $9,000 a month. It can go up to 14. We ain't seen nothing yet. And the people who are out there demonstrating and talking about, they're the one, like they're deporting to Haiti the biggest portion of their healthcare in nursing home. It's the stupidest, dumbest thing I've ever heard. I don't know how better to explain it. It's so foolish, right? Because what happened, they keep boasting, we're the best, we increase your goods and have need of nothing. And we're rich. But notice that said, thou art what? Wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. Because you're foolish. And because you're just doing everything for so much. 140,000? Oh, 140,000 for New Jersey? Oh man, I don't know. For in 1 year. All right, so for the average house in New Jersey, they could gobble that up in 3-4 years. Gobble it up. People don't know what's here. I'm not talking about what's coming. All these people boasting about we're the best, we're the good. You know, all these people, these geriatric people that voting for evil and for hate for their fellow human being because of the skin color, they have something coming their way. Because what happened, the healthcare cost is staggering. Because that's nursing home, and then there's healthcare costs. You could do one surgery and it's $300,000. Your house gone. Revelation chapter 3, verse 18. I counsel thee to buy of me gold tried in the fire. True character. Because they have no character. What they have is money. Notice I said we're rich and increased with goods. You know, we have material plastic goods from China. But they have no character. And this is what's missing in the church. Character. The gold is the character that has been refined by the working of the Holy Spirit upon the heart. That thou mayst be rich. Because no matter how rich you are, you have no character, you're very poor. Poor in God's sight and poor in my sight. And white raiment, which is a robe of Christ's righteousness to cover them, because you need some covering, that now mayst be clothed because they're naked. Because think about it, how naked a person is. They're there favoring the flag of hate. And you'll be like, you don't see you naked? You don't see you have no character? Oh, but I'm a Christian. Christian, you need to get some robe of Christ's righteousness. You just, you know, like the hypocrite that was there to call herself press conference, whatever, and all she do wear a cross. Get some robe. Get some gold. That the shame of thy nakedness do not appear. They see in your buttocks. Your buttocks is out exposed. As they say, your ASS is exposed. And anoint thine eyes with eye salve, that thou mayst see you can't see. I'm telling you here, the silver tsunami is here, and the hate is coming from that tsunami. And the people they hate are the people that's in the healthcare. They hate the Jamaican nurse and the Filipino nurses and the Indian doctors, and they're saying, come out of my country or whatever. And if they're not that, one of the things that is shocker to me is that a lot of the kids are disabled and stuff like that. Who's going to take care of the kids? The shame of your nakedness, all this hate and uncharitable work is coming back. So PTSD is long after an actual dangerous past. So this is something that I've realized. Have you ever dealt with somebody that is after the danger, they're in the danger zone, they realize what happened and they start mourning and having problems because after the fact. So it's something that we have to really deal with because sometimes a person can't see what the situation is. Does that make sense? They're in the situation. So you remember in 2008, there was this thing where some people short the market because they see the market was going to go down and they short the market because they were doing mortgage-backed security where they're bundling crazy loans that don't make no sense. And then they'll package it and sell it, and they think they were doing financial genius. And what they couldn't see was that they were wrecking the economy, and they were going to take down the economy. So often I realize these boom and busts, they're predictable. You can predict them coming. Because what happened, the tsunami is coming, but the tsunami normally doesn't come immediately when the earthquake happened. No, right? The earthquake happened, he sends the drought, and then now he sends it out, and then the water start coming back. And so they always, when an earthquake happens, if it's near to, coastal region, they have to send out a tsunami warning. Especially what happened in Banda Aceh in Indonesia, which was one of the places known for all its pedophilia, especially as British men go there and buy these little boys. And then the Lord just wipe away all of this wickedness. And earthquake happens, tsunami gets sent, and then it comes in after. And what I realized is that you could be looking at the problem, but the people that's going to be hit by the problem, they're not seeing it. Because why? They have no eye salve. They're blind to what's coming. So the tsunami is coming, and I'm saying the tsunami, we start feeling the effects of the tsunami because I was being given testimony even today about the tsunami and the healthcare tsunami that's coming. And that's here. But the people that they're supposed to be panicking and saying there's a tsunami coming, they're the one that are literally most aggressive when it comes on to people to help them in the tsunami. You didn't get that one, as they would say. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. So reading this text is obviously, I try to do it justice by rebuke and chasten. Be zealous, therefore, and repent. In other words, you have to be zealous. You can't be lukewarm about this type of stuff. You have to get fervent, and I can't preach to you or teach you anything unless I tell you the real dangers that lie ahead. Because then you're not going to get excited to realize there's a tsunami coming. I'm telling you, there's a big tsunami coming. And I'm telling you, the tsunami, we start seeing it here. And as I say, the people that the tsunami is going to hit especially, we're going to be affected just like Joe because we're in the environment. But the people are going to be affected. Iran going to be the least of the problems. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not even think about Iran. And I probably because I'm trained socially. When I say socially, because I'd work in healthcare and stuff like that in the past. So I'm probably, somebody could say I'm biased because I'm working in healthcare, so I'm, always thinking about old people and sick people and stuff like that. But I'm going to tell you, from my assessment, because I work in finance also, is that it says Iran could get wiped off the map real quick in the sense of we forget about them because we have an emergency in our hand over here, because we realize that emergency here, but we're dealing with something over there, and emergencies here. Remember, when 2008 happened, what happened to Bush? President Bush. By 2007, we understand that the tsunami was here. Right? And he had to get out of the office and give it over to a black guy. There's a black guy stealing my show. Right? Why? Because we needed somebody that's a socialist, because he had just run the country up in debt. And what we've been doing since, with all these wars, run the country up in debt. And who needs the money? Because remember, they keep telling you that Social Security going to put Social Security on the stock market. Who needs the money? Because if the system goes belly up, guess who get the hit first, Social Security wise? Who needs the Social Security money? You need it? You need it? You thinking about Social Security? You ever thought about it? All right. So you're not thinking about it, but somebody collecting it, they're thinking about it. All right. My wife told me for years that she don't believe that, say, if life lasts, and she get to that age that they're going to be no money there. Right. So there's no plan for that. We don't think about it. I'm not thinking about it. Right. It's good as dead to me, because what happened? The unfunded liability is off the chart. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him, and I will sup with him, and he with me. To him that have overcome it, I'll grant to sit with me on my throne, even as I overcame and sat down on my Father's throne. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches. So the Lord wants you to overcome, but it's difficult to overcome because we're in an environment where it's just faking. It's just part of the environment we live. It's part of the Christian environment. It's part of the secular environment. It's in the church. It's in the world. And so when you're in that type of environment, it's hard for you to overcome, because you might have to do things and say things and act in ways that is contrary to the environment. Remember, we live in a society, we live in a church environment that is aggressive against anything to do with works. Yet you have to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. So post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, is a mental health condition that can develop after you experience or witness a terrifying, life-threatening event or deeply traumatic event. So you could witness, you see something, you experience something terrifying or life-threatening or deeply traumatic event. That's what PTSD comes. And when you experience that, you decide, you know what happened in January 6th? I'm not going back to work in DC because I don't want to experience that anymore. And I'm just going to stay away from that place. So you can experience that just dealing with secular folks or church folks. Or life can be a traumatic experience. Just anything in life. You're just going through life is a traumatic experience. Sometimes deal with one person, you could deal with a person that you regret ever meeting that person, because the person comes with so much trauma in your life and so much drama. And when I'm talking about that, that's if you live, because remember, there's some people, this year alone, how many people got shot up and live? One of the last shooting that happened, this guy shot some people. This week he was in the news. I think it was this week. He shot three different homes, three different group of people. And I think a 13-year-old survived with 4 bullets. And she lived to call the police, and she's in stable condition. I think the last time I read. But 4 bullets, you think she's gonna have PTSD? Right? But what the society was upset. A lot of the commenters I read was upset because they identify him, and it just so happened that he's a white male. A lot of people were upset that they identify and they post his picture because they're sensitive about that touch a nerve. But they identify him, but the interesting thing is ex-wife said that he should have been arrested and behind bars, but the police dropped the ball. I don't know what evidence, how much evidence she have to back that statement, but that's what the media was reporting. Because remember, if you have a narrative that certain people are innocent or certain people are guilty, you're going to allow the people that are innocent to walk free, to live, to go shoot up 3 different households. And this is what we're dealing with. So imagine now that 13-year-old girl, she's going to have she had a terrifying experience. She had 4 bullets to prove it, and she lived. That's traumatic. Should she mourn? Yes. Blessed are those who what? Mourn, because they shall be comforted. But if you go through life and you're told, no, suck it up. I remember when I was younger, if you talk about certain traumatic experience, people are like, are you angry? I'm like, I wasn't thinking about anger. I'm just talking. There's this thing we just talk about. But sometimes you don't want to talk about it because you realize that people are fragile and they don't want to hear about it. Because they don't want to hear it. So they tell you, shut up and suck it up. I'm like, no, you shouldn't suck it up. That should be, there's things in this life I should mourn about. Because I learned from that. Because the heart is made better when you understand trauma. Because we should understand that we should go through trauma in this life, but we shouldn't just accept that says trauma is the way of life. And we should just accept it. We should mourn. We should understand that we live in we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and we're going to go through traumatic experience. So when it happened to us, we're not shocked. Also, what it does for me is that it makes me be aware that I have to be careful of certain people, careful of certain situation. As I say, I'm not going out to run 3 o'clock in the morning. All right, I'm not going to do that. I see people doing that, they're foolish. We live in a world where people are crazy. Think about the best societies, the best communities, how many disappeared people. Remember, in communities, they don't want people like myself, but they disappear themselves all the time. That is a fact. And people who are, what you would call it, fragile, don't want to hear that. The communities that they want the people from the hood to live in, those communities might be having people who are getting shot because they're getting robbed. But the communities that they, oh, look at this community is Mayberry. All right, Blueberry and School District. What is happening in those areas? How many mass shootings? How many kids getting missing? How many pedophiles? How many sex offenders that are registered? How many rapists? How many Congress people and senators live in those communities? And they're being charged. Even this week, they're getting their phone taken from them and being investigated. Who was that guy? Right? Police raiding them, FBI raiding them because they need to get their phone. But yes, somebody said, oh, but they live in the best communities. Were you crazy? Sinners are everywhere. Come on now. All right? Everybody have their brand of sin. Let nobody make your sin be worse than their sin, because we are all sinners. But some people want to say they're not sin, and they're suffering the consequence for this wickedness. Because what happened? Oh, I'm rich and increasing, we're good. No, you're wretched. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 23. 1 Corinthians 9, verse 23. But by God's grace, we try to avoid being a castaway again. It says, this I do for the gospel's sake, that I might be partakers thereof with you. In other words, we're preaching what works for us. Somebody say, yeah, but somebody's preaching something else. They can preach whatever they want to preach. I'm just preaching what worked for me. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth a prize. So run that ye may obtain. Everyone that striveth for the mastery is temperate in what? All things. Now they do to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible crown. That means that we're striving on a higher plane. We approach things on a higher plane. We're not getting, I'm watching people, they make these decisions, this decision and that decision, they follow this person and that person. But what's the result? And we've been around for years, and the result has been, it's just sometimes Nothing, and sometimes just pair bang up. As I said, in a roller derby, and they're just getting banged up. And I said, they can follow that and follow this, but we're following what works for us. Notice here, I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air. In other words, we're doing what works for us, because we know it's worked for others in the past, and so it works for us. But I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest by any means, when I've preached to others, I myself should be a what? Cast away. So, in other words, if I have to do it, I'll come up here and cry like Jimmy Swaggart. But I don't want to do that. Right? I mean, I could do a good crying, right? It's just, I don't know, just all these women. All right? But we don't want to do that. So we try. And we encourage you to try, because you don't want to be a castaway. I don't want to see you on the side of the street. Amen? I don't want to see your brains blown out. How many people, they gone on a certain road and it's years of suffering? Decades of suffering. I don't want to see you like that. What they say, last 2024, I think my topic theme was an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. You could apply the cure, and we try to apply the cure even to ourselves. But certain things I wish I never gone down that road. So for me, I'm trying to not go down those roads, and then just to avoid them, and then try to apply the pound of cure. But I just wish that there's certain things I've never done, certain things I never eat in the past, because what happened, it could be years of dealing with nonsense and pain and suffering. That is I wish I didn't go down that road. Does that make sense? So then I tell you certain things because I wish you could learn from what I'm saying, so that you never go down that road and never go down certain road. I wish to God that you never take drugs, never take none of those, no drugs, no crack, no cocaine, nothing. I wish to God that you never go with no whores. I wish to God that you never, as I say, I believe that financial trouble is coming beyond what they're talking about, because as I say, I watch financial news every day. And I'm just seeing others, including what's going on with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, disability, all that type of stuff. Disability, forget about disability. That's another one. There's so many people that are disabled, especially from opiates. The disability numbers is off the charts. So I see trouble coming. So I'm just telling you, I'm preaching. Listen, I'm preaching here for that reason. That's why I try not to get excited over stuff, but sometimes I do. Because I want you to hear me and hear that. So listen, you don't want to be a castaway. You don't want to be a castaway. You want to stay. It's better you stay straight and narrow, and never leave off it, because leaving off it is a beatdown. We close with this: true ministry to those who are led by the Spirit. Notice here, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because He had anointed me to preach the gospel to the who? To the poor. Because especially the next few weeks, what I'm preaching here, is important to if you're poor, not just spiritually poor, but physically poor, financially poor. How to success. Last week, this week, to me, what I'm talking about here is, if you can survive from destitute, from the lower, from mourning, then you can do good. As I said tomorrow, I go through pain like there's no tomorrow. And I don't get depressed because I follow this principle mentally. And I don't experience depression. I'm always happy. As a matter of fact, most of the time I can't tell you some of the true lessons behind the sermon I'm preaching, because a lot of time when I'm preparing this type of sermon, tomorrow I say, what are you laughing about? Because a lot of what I'm presenting is actually, I find it as funny, but I'm practiced not to stand here and try to be a comedian, so I just talk it straight, and that's why I'm go on the other side of emotion. But almost every text here I can give it a joke behind it. So notice here, He had sent me to heal the what? The brokenhearted. So I'm on the side of those who are brokenhearted. I'm not on the side of those who are breaking young girls' heart. And so I've got into big argument with people because of that. Because if you have a preacher and he's been married to 5 women, you're going to have an argument with me, because I'm going to be against that person. I'm just telling you. You're just going around breaking young girls out, 5, 6, 7 women, just using them like they're his underwear. I'm just against that type of stuff. I believe the Bible is against it. I believe that person is a fornicator and abusing people, abusing women. And I have people took me to task even recently because of that. I'm going to side with those who are being abused not with the abuser. To preach the deliverance to the captive. If you're a captive, we're on your side. We're not on the side of the great oppressor from Washington, D.C. The recovering of sight to the blind, because we want you to see, because that's what Christ says. Give you eye salve that you might see. To set at liberty them that are bruised. So if you've been bruised by this life, we're on your side. And that's what we hear. We're not going to be preaching for those who are bruising people. And to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. In Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1. Notice it says here, this similar thought. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. Christ was really quoting from Isaiah 61. Because the Lord is upon me because he anointed me to preach the good tidings unto the meek. Christ called it the gospel. He had sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captive. That's why we believe the gospel is what's freed black people from slavery and Jim Crow and apartheid. To open up the prison to them that are bound. So we believe that they should let the prisoners go. To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God. Christ did not quote that because I believe that's our message in the last day. That's the third angel message. That's the message that the Adventist Church was supposed to preach, to tell the United States of America and Western Europe that every time they do an embargo, God's going to punish them. And ultimately, when they embargo or sanction God's people with the mark of the beast, God's going to rain down the seven last plague upon them. That's really our message. This is a message we have basically we've stopped preaching. But our message is to Western Europe and America is that when they do the mark of the beast and sanction, God will punish them. And that's the punishment coming. And ultimately, when they do it to us because of our preaching, God will definitely bring down the fire and brimstone on them. And to comfort all those who mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beautiful ashes. So that's what we're here for. We comfort people who are suffering. Oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, and that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. And they shall build the old waste places. So I believe when I see this, I can see an abandoned home, and somebody's going to fix it up. I can see a city that needs fixing up, or a person that needs fixing up. He shall raise up the former desolation, so we can deal with the things that are desolate. So that's why the next 3 Sabbaths or so we'll be dealing with these principles. And they shall repair the waste cities. So we believe in that, and the desolation of many generations, because the gospel blessed people who, as I say, once I stand here to you from a line of people that were once enslaved, but here we are, and God has blessed us and established us. So we believe the gospel deal with the desolation of many generations. Who would have known that the end result could be this? So guess what happened? It's good to be in the house of mourning, because in the months of mourning, somebody's mourning because they are being desolated, destituted, they have been affected negatively in this life, and we're supposed to be there with them to comfort them, to bless them, to offer some oil, some balm, some spirit of joy in a time of heaviness. So yes, we're not with the party people. We're not with the people that are trying to turn up the volume. We're with the people who needs comfort. May God bless you towards us. And thanks for being with us here at Covenant Advent Church. Looking forward to talking to you next week, where we're going to talk about how to do some things in the Lord.
Please take your hymnals in hand and turn to hymn 619. Hymn 619. Lead on, O King eternal, the day of March has come. Henceforth in fields of conquest, thy tent shall be our home. Through days of preparation, with deeds of love and mercy, the heavenly kingdom comes. Lead on, O King eternal, we follow not with fears, for gladness breaks like morning where thy face appears. Thy cross is lifted o'er us, we journey in its light. The crown awaits the conquest. Lead on, O God of might.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for your blessing that you have granted unto us. We thank you, O Lord, that you have comforted us when we mourn, and that you have put around us people who were able to help us when we mourn to get back in the right frame of mind, and that we're there also to help those who are mourning. I pray, O Lord, that as we, as a church, that as we see that there is distress going around not only in the nation but even within the church institution, I pray, O Lord, that we may prepare our minds and prepare our hearts to deal with difficult days ahead and how to help people to overcome. I pray as we go through this week that you may grant us the strength to deal with the challenges that we face, and that we may also be able to have joy in knowing that you have prepared a way of escape for us, and that we may do the right thing. We ask that you may continue to, as Brother Nesta has asked for prayer requests this morning, that you may grant those according to thy wish. May it be with our family, and be with as we're getting ready to go back to school. I pray that everything may work out well. Also, that you may be with Daniel, may continue to guide him and protect him. May you be with us as we prepare to go into a new work week, a new week, that you may grant us productive week. And I pray that you may help us, that we may remember that, as Brother Jose said, we start preparing for Sabbath today. I ask you that you may grant us your peace. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Please join us again on Sabbath as we open Sabbath school, and we're going to be going through a lesson. The lesson we're going to be dealing with is love-driven ministry. I pray that you may have a wonderful week and a productive week. May God continue to bless you and your family. Amen.